And through the drifts the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between.
Stratters. I've played a lot of expensive paper cards over the years. People tell me you should play Magic the Gathering online. They've given me a lot of reasons. Among them, you can play tournaments at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can play without clothes. You only have to own one play set of any one card. Because if you own 4 of one card, the computer just copies the card from one deck to another. But the one reason that sticks out to me the most is that Magic the Gathering Online has really old cards for really cheap. So this week's top 10 is top 10 cards that are over 100 times cheaper on Magic the Gathering Online than it is on Magic the Gathering paper. You may see some cards that are on the list, like Maze of Ith or Volcanic Island or Underground Sea. There could just be cards that are 50 or 60 or 70 times cheaper on Magic the Gathering Online. It's just not 100 times or more cheaper on Magic the Gathering Online. There are no cards here that are, say, like $1 on Magic the Gathering paper, but only a penny on MODO. There's none of that. These are cards that really break the budget, that say, man, I really wish I could have played that card, but I just can't afford it. Well, you can on Magic the Gathering Online. There's also cards not on the list, like Yawgmoth's Will or Chains of Mephistopheles or Underworld Dreams. I've just never played with the card, so I can't really critique it because I'm not an expert on the card. These are all cards I played on paper. So without further ado, let's start the top 10 with number 10, Candelabra of Tawnos, rare from Antiquities. It's a one colorless X colon untap X target lands. You can use them to untap Tolarian Academy, Gaia's Cradles, lands that tap for multiple mana. People thought there were only 10,000 Candelabra of Tanoses in existence. Antiquities had a very small print run. Who knows how many candles were destroyed from a house fire or a flood? It means that there's fewer than 2,500 Solidarity decks able to be built on paper Magic. $900 in paper, but only about $5 in Masters Edition 4, the MODO Online set. I like Candelabra of Tawnos just for untapping Maze of Ith, but you can also use it in, say, mono green Gaia's Genesis Wave decks with Gaia's Cradle, getting massive amounts of mana and drawing your entire deck, or with Tolarian Academy and getting massive amounts of mana and just drawing infinite cards with Stroke of Genius combos. I got mine for about $75, sold them for $150, made a nice profit. Maybe I should have kept them. Um, Number 9, Palancron. Rare from Urza's Legacy. Sold mine for about $4. It's on Vintage Masters on MODO, online only set. Now it's about $31.90. Yikes. I used it for a Power Surge deck, a blue-red deck. Power Surge, at the beginning of Untapped Step, you get to put little counters on Power Surge, and then after the Untapped Step ends and players gain priority, it deals damage to the opponent equal to the number of untapped lands they had the previous turn. You could use Palancron, and it says untap up to 7 lands. It doesn't say yours. You can untap your opponent's lands and then take 7 damage from Power Surge. They had mana burn back in those days. It's also used against me with infinite mana decks with High Tide. Either turn 6 or 7, even earlier if you use a turn 5 Time Warp. You could use Palancron, spend 7 mana to cast it, untap 7 lands, 4 to return it to your hand, so it's only 11 mana to loop it. And a High Tide with 7 islands would give you 14 mana, netting you 3 mana every single time you looped Palancron. Or you could do it with 6 islands and have 12 mana and loop it for 1 mana. And you could cast an infinite Stroke of Genius against your opponent and win the game that way. Lost a ton of games for Palancron. What a great card. It's still used in Commander decks, I believe. And you can still use infinite combo decks before. Anyway, number 8, Oubliette. Oubliette is a common from Arabian Nights, also printed in Masters Edition. $33 in paper. I got my Oubliettes just in mass deal. Card shop, Sheboygan, Michigan. Was wanted to be more of like a paintball shop, It was a paintball slash Magic the Gathering shop. I got my oubliettes for a bargain and bulk. 33 cents in Masters Edition, 33.59 in paper. 100 times cheaper. Oubliette is a more powerful version of Terror and Dark Banishing. Terror is 1 black 1, destroys a non-black, non-artifact creature. Dark Banishing is black 2, destroys a non-black creature. Oubliette kills anything. When it comes into play, it exiles a creature and it exiles the enchantments on that creature. Every time I played Oubliette, I've never encountered a player who has seen the card before. Everyone's actually had to read it. Arabian Nights, just a very small print run. Magic Online, it's played a ton in Grey Merchant of Asphodel decks because Oubliette has 2 devotion and it stays in play as an enchantment. Grey Merchant of Asphodel also has 2 devotion to black, so an Oubliette plus a Grey Merchant of Asphodel will deal at least 4 damage once the Grey Merchant hits in play. It was bugged for several years. I think it's fixed now. Coming at number 7, Thawing Glaciers from Alliances. Very flavorful card. After the Ice Age set, the whole planet started to thaw and created Thawing Glaciers, also seen in Vintage Masters and Magic the Gathering Online only set. Alliances comes into play tapped. 1 colorless tap. Search your library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. Doesn't tap for mana itself, but the land that you search for doesn't count towards your 1 land per turn limit. So you could play your regular basic land for the turn, or non-basic, I guess, and tap Thawing Glaciers, and you get another land. It's kind of like having an infinite number of clues. You could have 4 of these in your deck. I used it with a Drain Life deck. You could use like Terrors and Dark Banishings back in those days to destroy your opponent's creatures, while just gaining more and more mana with Thawing Glaciers, and then killing your opponent with a killer Drain Life. You can still use it these days in Commander a lot, and it's quite cheap. It's only about 31 cents for Masters Edition or 2 cents for Vintage Masters card, and it's 20 bucks on paper. Coming in at number 6, it's Nether Void. Nether Void is a rare from Legends. Legends was a humongous set. It's pretty hard to get a rare of any kind in this set. Nether Void's an enchant world. All spells are countered unless their casters pay an additional 3 colorless. I use it in blue-black creatureless control, just as a way of just destroying 3 lands from each player. What a great card. You can combo it with mono-black land destruction decks with cards like Sinkhole, destroy your opponent's lands, and then a lot of decks just top out their mana curve at 4. You could top it out with 1x Nether Void, and your opponent should just concede after that point because they'll never actually get 3 lands in play to play another spell ever again at Nether Void. I'm surprised I don't see this in mono black land destruction as much. You'd think it'd be a lot easier these days with Dark Confidant and Brent. $889 in paper, and you can get it for just 1 ticket online with Masters Edition 3. I think I got my Nether Void from packs, and I only got 1 of them, and I kept it for a very long time. I think I sold it maybe for 100 bucks. Number 5, The Abyss, also from Legends, also for rare. Even back in 1994-95, The Abyss was worth about 70 bucks. I'm surprised I kept my 1 copy for so long. It ended up being printed in an online-only set, Masters Edition 3 on MODO. There was a pseudo-reprint of The Abyss called Magus the Abyss from Future Sight, but we're going to talk about the original of The Abyss for this one. The Abyss is on paper for $940. Yikes. For Masters Edition 3, it's only $1.94. It's an enchant world. All players bury 1 non-artifact creature under their control if they have during their upkeep. If you're playing a blue-black creatureless control deck, you should be able to keep your opponent at 0 to 1 creatures at all times. But when you play the Abyss, it destroys the 1 creature your opponent has, and then if they cast 1 more creature, say they play, just assume they play 1 spell a turn. The creature will have Summoning Sickness for their first turn, and then during their upkeep and their second turn the creature exists. It'll just be destroyed. You could also conceivably play this in an artifact slash black deck. Since it does say non-artifact, it won't destroy your creatures, but it should destroy all of your opponent's creatures. It is an enchant world, so it could be destroyed by a Concordant Crossroads or any other enchant world spell. Enchant worlds only exist if there's one enchant world and play it at any one time on both players' boards. It's kind of like a super legendary effect. So be sure to be aware of that. I wish I kept mine. Number 4, Ali from Cairo, from Arabian Nights. Ali from Cairo was originally banned in Magic the Gathering, probably the only first creature to be banned, simply because it was just an unfair card printed in Masters Edition 4 on MODO. Ali from Cairo is 2 red, 2 colorless. While Ali is in play, damage that would reduce you to less than 1 life lowers it to 1 life. All further damage is prevented, so you're virtually invincible. Versus mono green decks, this was unfair because green had 0 ways of dealing with Ali from Cairo. Short of a Desert Twister, I guess. $259 in paper. I got mine for about $30 on eBay. Someone had misspelled Ali from Cairo. I think that's why I got it for that cheap. It was still around $50 back in those days. You can get it in Masters Edition 4 for about 6 cents. I could still see it being played these days in, let's say, a Commander deck. But 6 cents seems super cheap for the card. So it gets number 1 for being, most percent off. Number 3, Mana Crypt. Mana Crypt was a card from the books. There used to be a set of novels. The first couple would give you a card. If you ripped a page out of the book and turned it in, you would get a card in the mail. Mana Crypt was the most powerful of all the book cards. I got mine from a book. It was originally unrestricted for a long time, because how would you get 4 copies of a card if you'd have to buy 4 books? It'd be pretty dumb. This was before the internet, when people had eBay and stuff. It was printed in online-only Vintage Masters. It got printed a couple of times, Eternal Masters and Kaladesh Inventions, but it still ended up being about $200 on paper. You can get it online for 2 tickets or $2, so 99% off exactly in that case. It's a power level about on par with Black Lotus. It's 0 colorless, and it taps for 2 mana. The only drawback is that there's a 50-50 chance you take 3 damage during your upkeep. This is a key to a lot of first turn combos like Volt Key, Voltaic Key, Time Volt, where you just take infinite number of turns. You still don't win with that. The reason being is a Mana Crypt could still do 3 damage to you until you died. So the rest of your infinite turns in your Volt Key deck was spent trying to figure out how to get rid of Mana Crypt. Number 2, Mana Drain. Mana Drain is a card from Legends. It's not even a rare, it's an uncommon. Printed on Magic Online in Masters Edition 3 and Vintage Masters. Mana Drain I got for about $50. I got 2 of them, and I pulled 3 of them from packs, giving me 5 Mana Drains. I was truly blessed for having this card. It's blue-blue, counter-target spell. At the beginning of your next main phase, add X colorless mana to your mana pool, where X is the casting cost of the spell you countered. Counterspell is too powerful to be in Modern, and Mana Drain is a more powerful version of Counterspell. So Mana Drain ranks up there in power level. You can find it on Vintage Masters for just 73 cents. So, hey, it's 99% off. $85 in Iconic Masters. This spell is an automatic 4 of. The only reason why it's this cheap still and hasn't ballooned is because Blue's gotten some very powerful 1 mana permission spells, which is why Mana Drain is not an automatic 4 of in every single vintage deck like Force of Will ended up being. Number 1, Library of Alexandria. A common from Arabian Nights. This card was the most powerful card in Peasant Magic. It eventually got banned after the first major Peasant Magic tournament because it was just way overpowered. It got printed in Vintage Masters and Masters Edition 4 on Magic the Gathering Online. Library is a land that taps for colorless mana, and it lets you draw a card if you have exactly 7 cards. $1,500 in paper. You can get it online for about a ticket. 19 cents. Jeez. Uh, Library of Alexandria is the number 10 and the power 9 top 10. If you haven't seen that, see that already. Should tell you how powerful Library of Alexandria is. The Magic community is a little bit split on Library of Alexandria. It's kind of like an anti-mox where it slows you down for your turn 1. Even though if you have a bad turn 1, you eventually win the game through card advantage. Which is why it's so expensive right here. Also, Arabian Nights, once again, is a very small set. Did I miss any cards in the top 10? What would you put in the top 10 99% off list? Leave a message in the comments if you want to tell me. Thanks for watching.
Friends, check out humblebundle.com. You get hundreds of dollars of games for just $12 a month. It goes in your Steam account and it stays there forever. So, what I want you to do is I want you to join Humble Monthly with this code YM2B9L and support Wall of Ice Cream on his endeavors. And there will be more videos, I promise. We just need more than 0. Go for it. Do it.